Hello, everyone. This is Dwight Woods, the Jeet Kune Do Rebel, and welcome to today's episode number 137 of the Jeet Kune Do Dialogues. As you're logging in, if you'd be kind enough to say where you're logging in from, hit the like button and feel free to continue doing so throughout the dialogue. If you are catching the final edit video over on the YouTube, when you're there, please like and subscribe and hit the notification bell as well. If you enjoy my work and you'd like to support the program, please visit jkdrebel.com, click on the Rebel Gear link and check out what we offer. But of course, the best thing you can do is to share this video and spread the word about the Jeet Kune Do dialogues. So my dialogue partner today is a guy who, to me, stands out in the crowd of what I refer to as the JKD Young Tigers. And I'm excited to probe his mind because I think there's some interesting stuff going on there. So with that, T. Kent Nelson, welcome to the Jeet Kune Do Dialogues. I'm in the middle of our conversation.
Okay.
All right. So that was a burning question that I had because I knew when I did the research, I had seen something about EMT, right? And then I went looking for it and I couldn't find it again. So I was like, man, did I imagine that or what? So you were a paramedic.
I actually still maintain my Michigan license for being a paramedic. Yes.
Okay.
I was on the road for roughly about 7 years, and in 2008, when the economy took a big dump, I got laid off, and the woman I was seeing at the time, who wound up becoming my wife, she said, now it's time to do what you really want to do. Follow your heart, not just follow another job. And
right.
I was like, yeah, I think you're right. And that's also probably when I knew that, there's something to this one. Hang on to this girl.
Okay. So I'm going to do a mushy thing here, right?
Okay.
But I watched the two of you interact, right? And so, okay.
Where?
No, on video.
Okay.
Right? So so just watching the two of you together, right? This was the question that jumped into my mind. Where did you learn about devotion?
About devotion?
Yeah.
In what sense? Because there are a couple different ways people take the term devotion.
Yeah. Well, see, okay. So the preface was what? I watched you and your wife, right, in action.
Right.
And then the question is, where did you learn about devotion?
From my wife.
Right? Because I can see, you're probably too young to know that there used to be this love song back in the day when there was a thing called love songs. Because I don't think you young people know anything about that. Like, all you know now is hip hop crap and what have you. But there was a time when there was a thing, right? And there was.
How old do you think I am?
Well, that's the other thing that we're going to get to, right?
Okay,
because bless
enough.
his heart, Mick Tully sent me the interview that he had done of you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, except that it's like 7 years old, and so there was no clickable link, so I never got to listen to it.
But if I recall, I think that's actually 2016, because we did that.
Okay.
We did that actually at Rick Faye's school for the instructor camp. I think 2016.
Okay. All right. Okay. So it was. Okay. So here's what happened.
Okay.
I couldn't listen to it, but I read the show notes on it, and Mick called you the youngest person with a full beard.
I think when you read that, what you're really hearing is a lot of jealousy coming through from Mick.
Yes. Yes. He's being we'll make up a word. He's being folliculist.
I gotta tell you, I followed, I kind of followed some of the stuff Nick was doing for a long time, and I liked a lot of his podcast work, and I loved having the opportunity to actually meet him in person at the camp and converse with him and talk with him and get a little bit of training in. And such an
Yeah.
incredibly nice guy. You know, very
Yeah.
personable, very fun, very friendly.
Just about, I have never met a jerk at any MKG event. Never.
Yeah.
You know, now
They're
there
good
might
people.
have, yeah, there might have been a guest of theirs that was a jerk, but but nobody who is a member of MKG. And so what were you doing at their instructor conference?
I received a message from Sifu Rick sending me an invitation to come on out and bring a guest if I would like, and
Ah,
I took him up on it. I
okay.
don't. I assume. I don't know that that invitation was like personally from him to me. For all I know, that could have gone out to a lot of other in Asano. Maybe it's because I'm an Asano instructor. You know, I
Mhm.
really don't know what prompted the invitation. All I know is that I jumped at the chance to be able to go visit Rick Fay
Yeah.
in his home school, be able to see him do what he does. He's been he's been one of many inspirations to me for a really long time, and so I just couldn't pass that opportunity
Well,
up.
you must be something special because they've never sent me an invitation.
I should have made you my +1. I'm sorry.
Right? They never sent me. No, okay. But to get back to your +1, so there used to be a love song, and the title was "Totally Devoted to You."
Okay.
So that's what I saw in the photographs and the interaction. And then I thought, okay, how old is this guy? So that's where the question comes from. Along the way, how would you have learned about devotion?
Um, well, probably. Well, first of all, to answer your question, I'm 42. I'll be
Okay.
40. I'll be 43 in November. Um, where did I learn about devotion? You know, I think number one, I'm an only child. I do have a half sister, but she lives in California. We grew up in separate states, so I was the only child in my house. And I didn't have a lot of friends, but the friends I had were very close and tight knit. Like my buddy Jimmy Bliss, my buddy Dennis Lacrone. I mean, I've known those guys since we were like elementary school and middle school, and I still hang out with them today.
Okay.
Um, and you know, so to me, and neither one of them went to like they don't really go to my high school or anything like that. And so, you know, I really kind of discovered that the power of having, you know, one or two or three super close people around you versus a whole bunch of surface relationships. And I think I learned to kind of value things that way. Also, obviously, you know, when it comes to martial arts, um, you you have to devote yourself to whatever area you're studying for
Right.
quite a while before you
Right.
can achieve any kind of skill.
Yeah.
And I've been doing martial arts since I was 7. So you know, I understand the concept of things take time and things take work. And so whether it be a friendship, whether I'm writing a song, whether I'm writing a curriculum, whether it's my marriage, whatever it is, things take time. You
Did
know,
you
if
just
you
say
want to make them
writing a
work.
song?
Yes, yeah. I play guitar and I sing. It's not really something I do super publicly, but I've played guitar. I think I picked it up when I was 14, but I really kind of started really working it regularly when I was 16.
Well, you know, the Jeet Kune Do Dialogues is viewed by millions of people. We're second only to Joe Rogan's podcast. So now it's out in the public that you play guitar and write songs. Okay.
Oh man,
Yeah.
I'm sure the fan mail is just gonna come
Yeah.
racing pretty soon.
So what age was it you said you started training?
I started when I was 7.
Okay.
I
So was it with that guy?
it was with well, not with, but I did train for quite a long time, about 15 years with Yamashita Sensei there.
Okay.
I never did get an opportunity to train with Richard Bastilio.
You're not supposed to recognize that. That's the thing I'm springing on you, that they look exactly alike.
Man, you can't show me a picture of Richard. You can't show a JKD Poly guy a picture of Richard Bastilio, and I'd be ashamed if I didn't know who that was.
All right. Okay. Here I add another one for you. But the only thing,
Okay.
I don't know if this is actually correct, if that is Yamashita Sensei or not. But
Well,
if
I
it
got to
is,
tell you, it's certainly his haircut from that time period.
Right. Well, see, okay, so that's Chong Lee, right? The
Okay.
Taekwondo guy. It's
Right.
the same haircut.
Yeah. 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 But I've seen quite a few pictures of Yamashita Sensei, with the big, like just like it is right now. They got
Yeah.
head and hair on him, and
Yeah.
he had like a mustache back in those days too. And those pictures are fun. They're fun to look. They're fun to look at that historical documentation of how our fashion has changed over the years.
Hey, so um, you started with him, and
Uh,
you were with him for 15 years. Is that what you said?
no, I didn't start with him.
Okay.
So I started. My parents enrolled me in like a parks and recreation style taekwondo school, or taekwondo class, excuse me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I was super young. I was so young. I mean, I was 7, and at the time, it was really kind of rare. Like at the time, taekwondo didn't have the name it has today. Now taekwondo is almost more common than karate, but at the time, taekwondo was a fairly new term around where I live.
Okay.
Um, Most of the schools were like karate schools,
Right.
and if they were taekwondo schools, they usually referred to themselves as Korean karate. So I did that for a while, and I studied taekwondo from the time I was 7 until the time I was 14. Um, Probably one of the most influential people ever in my life up to that point. I met, his name was Chad Ostrander. He was one of my instructors, and he's the guy that made me want to be a teacher. I met him when I was 12, and
Right.
he was only 19, but to me he was like a full-fledged adult.
Right. Yes.
And he made me want to do what I'm doing now. I'm doing what I'm doing today because he started me on that path. I will always be grateful to Chad Ostrander for that. And then I went into karate and other Japanese arts. I joined a school that taught, I think it was about 4 different Japanese arts. And then let's see, I did that for about 3 years. When I was like 14 to 17. And then I actually went back to help a friend of mine out who was teaching at a Taekwondo school, and they were kind of struggling. So I went back to help them. And one of the kids in that class, his uncle used to watch me and used to say, "Man, you're a good technician. You should. Have you ever heard of my instructor, Tadashi Yamashita?" And I had not. And he says, "Why don't you come over to my house sometime and I'll show you a cool videotape." And so I went over and we put the tape in, and when I saw this guy move, it was like the
Yeah.
old Panther Productions Yamashita karate video, right? The old 2-volume
Yeah.
series.
Yeah.
And when I saw him move, what I heard and what I saw was a little bit of truth. It was more truth than what I had currently been training in. Now, I'm not saying that there wasn't truth in Taekwondo. There wasn't as much truth as I was looking for where I was studying Taekwondo from the different people, with the exception of probably Chad Ostrander.
Hmm.
But when I saw Yamashita Sensei move, now granted, there's still a lot of set karate pattern to it, right?
Yeah.
But when you watch his body move, he called what he did Sekendo. And when you watch his body move, and he moved more like a boxer, much more water flowy. Now I don't know that then, but now you look at it and you go, oh, that's more like Ed Parker style Kempo
Hmm.
movements.
Hmm.
And he had mechanics, and he could whip his body. And so I got in contact. Mike got me in contact with a guy named David Hayes, Sensei David Hayes, who's an awesome person. He's an 8th degree black belt, legit 8th degree black belt under Yamashita Sensei, and he gave me his contact number. And then in '99, I went out there and started training with Yamashita. We had a private out there, and then I basically followed him. I would go to and from California, as well as like when he would come into Michigan. He'd come into Michigan a couple times a year, sometimes Indiana. I try to hit all those seminars and go out and see him when I can.
Um, so when you go back to the school where they taught a bunch of different Japanese arts, how did they manage that?
Well, so it was called Anderson's Karate at the time. Anderson's Karate has closed since. It was run by a man named John Anderson, but it's actually still his school now. It's run by a man named Mark McLeod, Sensei Mark McLeod, who's under Sensei Iha with the. I want to say Shidokan. I really hope I don't mess that up for them. I think it's Shidokan Karate. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. So so he ran that school, and he at the time he taught a system which he called a Aikishindo, which is like basically a root of Shorin. So there was the karate system, and then there was that was where I got introduced to Kobudo. At the time they called it Rukyu Kobujitsu.
Right.
I also got exposed to, they had a sensei there named Sensei Todd Young, who I think was a Nidan, a secondary black belt in Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, Nihon Jiu-Jitsu. And so I learned some of that from him. I got to meet a man named Sensei Ron Fox, who taught me a little bit of Kendo and a little bit of the Aido. I really enjoyed my time. I mean, I lived there. I was, my parents would drop me off there at 5 o'clock, at night after school, and then pick me up at, 9, 10 o'clock at night, like
Right.
4 or 5 days a week. I loved it. During the kids' classes, the little kids, I go down to the basement of the school and I start writing on my notepad, like all the new stuff I learned here compared to what I learned at the other place. And I would think to myself, well, how come we never learned this kick in the other style? It's so functional. And
Mhm.
at the same time, I would wonder, well, how come, we don't ever do the spinning side kick here at this school? I made that thing work for me all the time at the other school, or whatever it might be. That's just using an
Right.
example.
Yeah.
And that was my first real understanding of like the power of mixing martial arts. But at the time, that was strictly, I mean, you were around at that time period, that was strictly forbidden around
Hmm.
those days.
Hmm.
That didn't become a popular thing until, after the UFC. The only guys who were doing it were those JKD guys,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
and that's what you heard from those, types of time period. Everybody was in their little clique, right? At that time
Right.
period, mixing the arts was frowned upon unless you were a JKD guy, and now, I mean, it's ridiculous to even think about, one style being the ultimate and one and only way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, depending on who you're talking to or who you're talking about in JKD, what people refer to as the mixing of the arts is still
Yeah.
what some people would refer to as frowned upon and what have. But we'll get to that. We'll get to that later. So you were -4 then when Bruce Lee passed away,
Okay. Yeah,
right?
I was born in 77. He died in 73. Yeah.
Yeah. So you were -4. So what brought you then onto the Jeet Kune Do path?
Well, when I was 16 years old, I had a friend named Josh Pitts, and Josh Pitts had been taking Filipino martial arts at a local martial arts school somewhere around here from somebody. And when I was 16, he started sharing the stick work with me. And so I've been doing Kali since I was 16, and I loved it. I was like, this just feels right. Even though I wasn't good at it, I knew it felt right. It felt like
Mhm.
a part of my identity I'm just now discovering.
Okay.
And I basically kept with my own practice at that over time. I got through high school and into college, and I was in I think I was in medical school. No, I may have been a paramedic already. And I met a man named Dan Smith who ran a martial arts school here in Lansing, and he taught Kali and Jeet Kune Do and a few other things. And through Dan said to me one day, hey, I'm going to go to this seminar. Would you like to come with me? I need a training partner. This guy's name is Dan Inosanto. He's a big Bruce Lee guy. At the time, I was not a Bruce Lee guy. And I was like, yeah, sure. Okay, I'll go, and you talk about like, I could have made such a bad decision, like so I could have made
Yeah.
my life could have gone in such another direction, but I was like, yeah, sure. Cause I had never really done the martial arts seminar thing with the exception of Yamashita. I'd never seen
Right.
anybody else do it.
Right.
And so we went to the seminar, and I was pretty blown away. I mean, because at the time Guru was 64, and when Guru was 64, he moved like faster than most 24-year-olds can move. Like it was just crazy. And somebody lent me the old tortoise videos, and what really got me interested in what he was doing. A JKD thing came later. For me, it was really about the Kali. But when I saw him do a quick demonstration on those old tortoise videos with him and Simo Paula, he did a demonstration of Panantuk, and basically it was like a vertical gunting to a vertical elbow to a horizontal elbow. And it was so fast. It reminded me of when I first saw Yamashita Sensei. I felt that little tug again of truth, like someone
Right.
saying, "Hey, you should pay attention to this," you know.
Yeah.
And that got me into the empty hand side of it, you know, which of course then broadened the waters, which led me to getting into the JKD and the C-Lot and then the jujitsu and all the you know all the you know
Right.
the
And
cascade started after that.
right. So is that how you came across the Hatches, David and Linda?
Yeah, so I met let's see. I think I met Dave um, specifically because he hosted the seminar, if I recall.
Ah,
Um,
okay.
because he would bring Guru Dan in, and I think so he brought him in, but the seminar was physically held at Chris Algieri's schools.
Right. Yes.
Um, and even though Chris changed schools, but they kept bringing Guru into wherever his location would be
Yeah.
until Chris moved out of Michigan.
Right.
So yeah, so that's pretty much how I met Dave Hatch, and then I started training with Sean Kitzman, and
Hmm.
Sean like exploring the CSW and a
Hmm.
little bit of the Muay Thai and the STX kickboxing stuff,
Right.
and because Sean was going through, actually we started with the Vunex PFS stuff first, and then moved into Paulson's material, but Sean was the one that basically he said, Hatch is one of my instructors as well, and he's got a lot of good technique, and you guys should talk. And Sean kind of opened up that door with me for Dave, and then Dave and I put some time in together. Sean and I put some time in together. I trained with both of them from 2007 to about 2015, I think.
Okay. Okay. Um, so did you? Yeah, that's a different era. So you never came across Dan Timlin then?
Well, Dan Timlin just passed away.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just heard that 2 days ago, and that's really unfortunate because although I was not close with Dan Timlin, and I'm not really connected with his school,
Okay.
I can say that Dan Timlin, to my knowledge, I could be wrong about this, but to my knowledge, Dan Timlin was the first person to bring Guru Dan Inosanto into Michigan,
Yeah.
which is how David Hatch met
Yeah.
Dan Inosanto, which is then David Hatch started bringing him into seminars, or
Yeah.
started bringing Guru into seminars in Michigan, and that's how I met Guru Dan and Dave Hatch. So
Yeah.
when you think about it, I mean, honestly, even though I never physically interacted with him, I have to give Dan Timlin credit, because if it wasn't for Dan Timlin, I also would not be walking this path.
I'll tell you this. He was responsible for the initial effort of many of us in the JKD world to become full-time instructors.
Really?
Yes. Dan Timlin, it was through Dan Timlin that Neil Colliff and I, for example, right, first got the idea. Timlin is a pioneer in both the seminar stuff, yes, but also in how to become a Jeet Kune Do professional
Mm-hmm.
and how to make a living at it.
I think that's very tough to be a JKD concept school, or to say you're a Jeet Kune Do school in general. I think that's very difficult, and it's difficult now, and it's much more popular. I can't imagine what it must have been like in those days when he was first trying to figure that out and try to navigate those waters. So
Well,
that must have really been something.
well, I mean, if I'll tell you this is one of my impressions of it. Just like at the old Kali Academy, 1974 to 1984,
Mm-hmm.
when people became aware that you could go somewhere for Bruce Lee stuff, they had a waiting list. So they didn't necessarily have to advertise or whatever between 74 and 84, right?
Okay.
I would say that I started with Inosanto in 83. I would say that for that 10-year period, 1983 to 1993, it was similar to the 10-year period, 1974 to 1984, in that JKD, Kali, Muay Thai sold themselves.
Okay.
Right? But then in 93, UFC won. Everything changes.
Yep. Very much so.
Right up until what we have, you know, to today. But Timlin, through him, I learned how to answer the phone.
Really?
Yes.
That's funny.
I learned how to answer the phone. I learned that there was actually, let's call it technique, to taking an information call at your school. And
I know now there's technique to it.
yeah,
I didn't always.
yeah. So did you when the decision was made to follow your heart and do martial art full time,
Mm-hmm.
did you go to any of the martial art business organizations? Did you spend any time with any of them?
So I did a couple different consulting companies to come in and give me some advice, but ultimately they weren't really like, you know, their general business, not really specifically martial arts.
Oh, okay.
I did go to one specific consulting company to help me, and that was run by a man named Nick Sweeney. Nick Sweeney, at the time, it was called Stone Robot, was his company. I don't know if that's still going or not, but I want to give that credit anyways. But you know, Nick, he now runs the Japanese Martial Arts Center out of Ann Arbor, Michigan. He is a fantastic Japanese martial artist. I mean, judo, jujitsu, karate, aido, like the man's amazing. Great philosopher. You should have him on your podcast. He's a really good one.
Okay.
But so he came in and he literally watched me teach when I was teaching only 2 students out of my garage. You know, like that's where I was at. So what I ran into, and he actually kind of gave me some good ideas, because what I ran into with the other like martial art marketing places was they all came from this assumption that you started off with, you know, like you've already got 50 students and a brick and mortar place, and they're going to help you get to 250
right.
students.
Yeah.
You know, and I was like, I wouldn't know what to do if I had 50 students. You know, I didn't have the room for it. I didn't have the space. So there was quite the learning curve for me. But ultimately, to answer your question, I never did like Maya or anything like that. I never did any of the professional organizations, and that's not to downplay them at all. It's just that a lot of times I didn't have the funding or the time to get into something like that. I was very lucky in that when I opened up my other location, or I should say my former location, about 7 years ago, there was a man named John Fayette who ran a local Taekwondo school here, Taekwondo and Krav Maga. And I got talking with him one day, because I go around, I try to visit the other schools, and I try to be friends with everybody around if I can and get to know them. Right. And we got talking, and he was telling me that they're in a martial art business organization, and he was kind enough to spend about 1 day a week with me for about 8 weeks, helping me with like learning how to talk on the phone, like, you know, how to properly do a flyer, what to not say, how you're chasing people away when you don't even know you are, you know, like all that kind of stuff. And he was really helpful there for sure. And I'll be always eternally grateful to John for helping me out. He'll always have a place on my mat if he ever wants to come in and work out.
Yeah. So like I told you when we were off camera that I knew about the EMT thing, but wasn't there something? Did you study art also?
Yeah, so I have first I got my associate's degree in illustration before I went into fire sciences, and then I got my fire 1 and 2 and my hazmat stuff. Then I went into EMT and then paramedic, and then I got on the road. I did all my schooling, got out of the way first, and then I got on the road.
So when I learned of that, 2 things came up. So the art thing. So then you know Kurt Cornwell of MKG Detroit.
Oh yeah, I know.
Because I think he's an illustrator also, right?
Yeah, he's a very talented person.
Okay, now the paramedic thing. So do you know Stefan Kesting up in Canada?
I've never met him, but I definitely know of him.
Yeah, because I think he's a paramedic as well. As is I think John Maidman also up in Canada. Do you know John? Yeah, I have to be careful to not. I tend to pronounce his name as a French name and not a Canadian name, and he corrects me on that all the time. So it's not Maidman, it's Maidman.
Maidman.
Yeah.
I probably know him through Facebook, but I don't think I've ever physically spoken with him.
Right, and you and I before today, you and I had not met, right?
No.
Wow.
I don't believe so.
Hey, I wonder if you were, because I've been to, I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've been to Michigan for Inasano seminars. And,
Sure.
I mean, I know for sure. I was definitely at one at Chris Malgeri's school. Definitely, right? Where they had the boxing ring, but it wasn't an elevated ring. It was on the floor. It was floor level, right? The
Yep.
boxing ring. Yeah. Because that's the one where I made a wrong turn and ended up in Canada trying to get to his to his place.
I was
So
I was my one of my students and I, his name is Matt Mondragon. He's an awesome person. I love him. We went to go train with Chet Skemmelhorn. He's my jujitsu teacher, and he's about a 2 hour drive from us. He's in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and just an amazing jujitsu practitioner. If you ever get an opportunity, but on the way back, I wanted to kind of get to know Matt a little better, so I started asking him some questions, and we're talking about politics and video games and a
yeah.
bunch of different stuff, And 2 hours go by, and I'm like, boy, I haven't seen the sign from Michigan, and because we're just in this conversation, just really loving it, and just getting to know each other. And then I saw a sign, an exit sign. I was like, that's the numbers going in the wrong direction. And I realized that we had just because we were talking, we realized we got on the wrong way on the highway and started driving further away. So
Right.
we not only drove 2 hours away, we had to drive 2 hours back, and we drive another 2 hours home. So all in all, we got about 8 hours in together in the car that day, and I got to know him real well. But so
Yeah.
I know that feeling of like, oh, I'll just make this quick turn, and I'm in another country.
So, so since we're talking about people that who the heck is Christopher Lee?
He's one of my students. He's wow, it's funny. Chris will laugh that you brought him up. So Chris Lee, he started training me a couple. Well, I know he's been with us for more than a year. He's got two awesome kids that train with us as well. But Chris, he is one of these people that if if you so much as mess around and accidentally mention something around him that you need something or need to work on something, Chris is there.
Ah,
He's I'm very blessed to have Chris be part of my school, to be part of our family here at KSK. To be honest with you, in general, I'm really blessed with so many of my people, with all, just honestly all my people. I mean, I couldn't have done this. I couldn't have got the school going, especially during all this, without them. You know,
yeah. So tell people about that because you just moved into a new place. Why now, and how is it going?
well, classes are a little thin right now. Uh, so why now?
They were waiting
Uh,
for you to put down the last mat. That's what they were doing.
Yeah, that's what it was. Um, so we were already looking for a new place to move to before the quarantine.
Okay.
Like all in the same week, we signed the lease. I flew out to Boston to do a grappling, an all grappling seminar for the KSK Boston group out there. And I come back home, and as I'm driving from Detroit to Lansing, I get a notification on my phone that we have to shut our doors, and I'm like, we have to what? you know, and and I taught my last class the old school, and I never even knew it.
Right.
So
Yeah.
so so this was going to happen either way.
Okay.
I don't know if this was really good timing or really bad timing. I mean, obviously, when you have a quarantine hit, it affects everybody's lives, which affects everybody, in a financial state. Obviously, finances are something that you have to be able to build and supply and do a new school. And at the same time, though, like, so that's kind of maybe the negative side is there's less like lucrative capital to be able to work with. The flip side of that though is that there's a lot more time now. It's not like, oh, I got to hurry up and just get those mats in because we got to have classes going on by tomorrow.
Right.
We've had, you know, we've had a few months to just kind of tinker away at this place and
Yeah.
make it as good as we can, so that when we're ready to open, we give the students like, hey, this is the wait was worth it.
Right. What do you have at the new place that you didn't have at the old?
Space. Space and an office.
Yeah.
um, honestly, the biggest thing, yeah, is space. Just having more room to be able to get more training partners on the mat. Which we can't train with each other right now. But
Right.
this is temporary. We will get there. I really actually am enjoying having an office. I didn't have an office at the other place. We
Really?
utilized Nope, we utilized all the space the best we could. So I said, I'm not going to worry about an office. I'll do signups and meetings over the display counter, and call it good. And that was ambitious, and I really
Okay.
wasn't thinking that through. And discovered right away, oh, I wish I had an office. So 7 years later, I finally have an office. One thing we do have here that I really enjoy, I put a big 65-inch TV up on the wall. So now, like when I'm doing Zoom classes, and I didn't mean it for Zoom. What I meant it for was so that I could like screen mirror like pictures off my iPad of like different instructors teach different history lessons, and rather than have everybody huddle around a little screen,
Right.
they can all huddle around a big 65-inch screen, and we can
Right.
talk about the history and what's going on. I can literally bring my notes up right on the screen for them, and then they can see how I wrote this down and
Yeah.
decide if that's how they want to do it, or if it inspires them to take the notes differently, or whatever. I just think it's going to be I think it's going to make for an excellent teaching tool, because we didn't have that opportunity to just screen mirror before. That's such an easy, fast, wonderful way to teach.
See, yeah, see, it's that kind of embrace of the technology that that's where I have this old jazz album that has a bunch of old lions playing alongside a bunch of young tigers. And so I borrowed that phrase for us in the JKD world. So you are one of the young tigers that I look at you guys and I see this unquestioning embrace of the technology. It's like you guys deserve all the success that you have, because you never thought that you couldn't do this.
You know, I don't know if I may have thought, geez, I've probably thought, I don't know if I could do this. I probably
Uh-huh.
thought, like, I'm not a technology whiz. I truly am not. I'm very monkey see, monkey do. You show me how to do it, I can do it. You
Okay.
set it in front of me and say, hey, go ahead and figure out this software. I'll just slide it right back to you because it's so easy, you know. But if you can show me, I can do it.
Yeah.
But I definitely, I think that we've been put in a position where I consider myself walking a strange road in time, because when I and I'm not that old, I'm only 42, but we had a rotary phone in our home when I was a child. We had a TV that was like the old click 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 dials. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
the one above and one below. And
Yeah.
we had that kind of thing going on. I remember when VCRs were new. I remember when remote controls for TVs were new. I was still really young, but it was like, wow, you can sit on the couch and press these four buttons, and you will do something.
Right.
I
Yeah.
remember that era. Like, and I have moved from being the guy that had to physically handwrite all his notes and come up with his own language and chicken scratch symbols and everything, to being able to film it on my phone in the hallway.
Right.
Like, it's so different. What I really have been appreciative for with technology is the way in which I take notes now. Or, I keep a massive video clip library. Like, when I think of something now, I'll take a video note, and then I just have to, like, kind of put it in the right folder, or put it in multiple folders so I could come across it, label it the right thing,
Wait.
and I can find it, which is way easier than
Wait. Say that
paper
again.
notes.
When you think of something, you make a video note.
Yeah. Okay, so
What?
here's a good
Yeah.
example for you. So because we've got this extra space right now, we're gonna have to do this social distancing thing when we start. I thought to myself, it might be kind of fun for the students for me to pull out some of my old Kobudo and like some of my old Okinawan bow staff stuff, and then apply Kali principles to the Okinawan staff. And so I started working on like a numbering system and some different drills. And when I get some ideas, I'll pull up my phone or pull my iPad, film myself doing it, talking to myself, just say, this is how you're going to do this, and you're thinking about this here, and this is the date.
Right.
I airdrop it onto my computer, and I label it, bow staff numbering system. And I
Right.
might put it in a collie folder. I might put it in a bow folder. I might put it in a numbering system folder.
Right.
So that no matter where I go, I'm gonna find it.
Wow.
It makes for a lot of redundancy, but it also makes sure that you come across material more often, or you get to review things more often.
Yeah. See, I hope to live long enough to be able to develop that kind of system. I write it on a piece of paper, and then I will transpose that into my laptop, and I think I'm sophisticated.
I do that now. I did before we got on. I spent 2 hours working on my collie curriculum, literally writing out. I went through each rank, and I was just writing out like what are the general principles I'm trying to achieve here. Like if we were to change around the actual drills, are
Uh-huh.
the skills are the attributes that are developed the same, and tried to identify that. And I do all that by hand still too.
Hmm.
And they usually that leads to a written. Usually that leads to a video note though later on.
Right.
Later,
Yeah.
I
Of
bring it down
course.
and go, oh, I see what I mean. I better
Yeah.
film that.
Yeah. Hey, let's talk about curriculum since you brought it up. So first things first, KSK. What?
Okay.
Yeah, KSK. What does that stand for?
So KSK is stands for Kai Shin Kan, which is Japanese. Basically means house
You
of an
know,
open mind or
do
house
you
of an
know
open
I
heart.
want you? Do you know my intention was to ask you if KSK stood for Kai Shin Kan? That
It
was
did.
actually my intention, right? Because I realized, of course, in doing the research that there is a part of your curriculum that's called Kai Shin Jeet Kune Do, right? So then I
Yeah.
thought that's got to be the KS. So the other K could only be Kan,
Right. Yes.
right?
So yeah,
Yeah,
yes, Kana's house, and that was what I want. I wanted to, KSK is. I mean, it's become the name of the family, the name of the organization, the people, and that's
right.
not just the building, it's not just the curriculum, but it's all encompassing because Kaishin Kan means, literally means open mind house or open heart house if you translate it. Well, at least I'm told, if you translate it into English. So like the intent behind it means house of an open mind, house of an open heart,
Yeah.
because you have to have that to train here, and that's one of the reasons why like I put the Kaishin. I mean, they're just JKD concepts, but I put the Kai Shin in front of the Jeet Kune Do after a conversation I had with Guru Dan back in, it was either 2012 or 2013,
Mhm.
and we were talking. I was telling him about like how I had some Japanese teachers before him with Yamashita Sensei and Taiko Oyata and all those guys, and I said, what would you think about? He says, I don't want to ignore the lessons I learned from them, but I want to honor the JKD family, and I want to
Right.
honor what I've learned from you. And I said, what would you think about trying to blend those names, or would that be kind of like not too cool? But I thought I was thinking about saying Kaishin Jikundo for the simple fact that it would literally mean open mind Jikundo.
Right. Yeah.
Because there's so many people that are stuck in that 1969 curriculum, and
Mhm.
if Bruce Lee didn't do it this way, then it's no good. And Guru said, "Oh, I like that. I'd actually really encourage that." When I heard him say I would encourage that, I
Yeah.
stuck I stuck with it. So that's just what it means. I've heard people say like, "Oh, he's making up his own thing and reinventing it and Kai Shinji Kundo." Nope, I'm not reinventing anything. It's just my stamp on it to remind my own students that you
Yeah.
you have to keep an open mind, otherwise you become stagnant. And if you become stagnant, that is the exact opposite of what Jeet Kune Do was meant to do.
How often do people think it has something to do with Kyokushin?
Uh, as of today, once
Really?
you. I've actually, you're right. I mean, I've never had anybody mention the Kyokushinkai. Although I did think it was funny. So it's KSK. We used to be called Kai Shin Kan Dojo, and after 10 years of being called Kai Shin Kan Dojo, and my own father couldn't remember the name of my school, so I'm like, all right, if after 10 years my own dad has trouble with it, how can I? And it's not a slam to my dad. It's just like how can I expect other people?
Mhm.
Like the name obviously means something to me, but might not communicate to other people. So we changed it to KSK, which just seemed a little bit more friendly to those that are outside of the know.
Right.
Something that would help them walk in the door seem less intimidating,
Okay.
less
Three
less
as
foreign.
All right, three aspects to the KSK curriculum: Armas Kali, Kai Shin Do, and thinking skills.
Yes, sir.
Okay, break down and explain that to us.
Okay, so we talk about there are essentially three skill sets that we teach in KSK martial arts. We teach weapon skills, and that curriculum is called Armas Kali. It's not my own system; it's just my own curriculum. It's my own organization of all the Filipino martial arts I've played with over time. We have an empty hand skills, and that's the Kai Shin Do curriculum. And then you have thinking skills, in which we break thinking skills down into basically tactical and philosophical thinking skills. Tactical meaning the physical steps that you're going to take and how you're going to achieve the thing you want to do. It's basically making the plan. And philosophical thinking skills meaning trying to understand ourselves better and trying to understand why we behave the way we do. Like how is what we're doing connected to our value and belief system? Why do we do the things we do? Why do we think the way we think? Why, if we're both going to the same place, maybe tactically you would go left and tactically I would go right. But philosophically, why? Why do you go right and I go left? Like what happened in our lives, or what do we believe about those directions that's superior to the other? Because if we can understand that, okay, all people, it doesn't matter if you're white, black, purple, yellow, far left, far right, atheist, Christian, Muslim, right? Everything is about the lens that we see the world through, and that lens is just our own personal experiences. The more we try to force other people to see through our lens, the more we just look like a shouting, raving idiot, right? That can't connect with other people. But if we can try to look at other people's lenses, then we can see where they're coming from, and whether we agree with them or not, we can at least understand and tolerate and communicate. That's where we have to start from, right? And so by breaking that down with ourselves, by physically trying to understand, why do I do the things I do? When you recognize that all of your decisions are based on, experiences, processing from experiences you've had, then you can look at another person and go, oh, well, they're so different than me. What experiences did they have? What processes did they have to bring them to that place?
Right.
And I think that for me, I couldn't imagine teaching without including that portion of it. Like on our shirts we say weapons, empty hand, mindset. And someone said, well, why don't you say weapons, empty hand, grappling, so it teaches what you do, or weapons, stand up, grappling? And I says, well, because grappling and empty hand, or grappling and stand up are empty hand. So we do weapons and we do empty hand, and then we do mindset. Because if we don't train this thing up here, we're going to abuse whatever skills we give this thing right here. So we gotta, you gotta keep it sharp. You gotta keep it, people that don't take care of this up here wind up having a lot more problems, right?
How do you know that?
I was a paramedic. But more importantly, I mean, you see a lot of people that make a lot of bad choices when you're a paramedic.
Yes. Yeah. See, the point that I'm heading towards is you're 43. Did you always?
Almost.
Sorry,
Almost.
November. Got it. Right. Okay. So you weren't born thinking the way you just broke down your curriculum?
Not even close.
So how did that? Yeah. How did that happen?
Well, I think that happened. I've been very fortunate in my life. I was raised with, number one, two stable parents. Not everybody is blessed with that today. When I was a kid, I can remember one or two kids that their parents were divorced in elementary school, and it was like, oh my gosh, they're a divorced family. And by the time you get to high school, I was like the only one I knew whose parents were still together. So I think it started there. And I definitely had struggles, just like anybody else, with my own parents growing up, being a teenager, and you get bad influence from your friends. But I got some pretty good friends, and I got some pretty good teachers in high school that cared about me. Martial artists, by the way. But mostly it was from the different martial arts teachers I've had over the years, both the good ones and the bad ones. I've had some humdinger experiences with like bad martial arts teachers, but I think everybody has bad experiences with anybody in any profession. And the thing was, like, I had to choose, do I let this experience with this person, do I let it ruin martial arts for me and I walk away?
Right.
Or do I just walk away from that person and learn from the situation? And I could never walk away from martial arts. So I would walk away from the person and say, okay, I remember how this person made me feel, and I'm going to do my best to not try to make another person feel that way.
Right.
Like I have the lens, of what they did. Now I can apply it and check myself with my own behavior. And it's really just kind of been about that. But the biggest thing for me, honestly, and I know this might even sound cliche, but it won't be an unpopular opinion on your podcast. Guru Dan was huge for me.
Right.
I mean, it was 20 years ago, so I was 22 years old, and that's that age where you can be really dumb. Like 22 is that age where you can really mess things up, baby.
Yeah.
You get all this new freedom and all this new like accountability, and for me, just listening to this man talk about all these different cultures,
Right.
and listening to this man, I truly believe this because I think this came from Guru. The more I learned about different cultures through him, the more I was able to like recognize, oh, somebody that isn't exactly like me isn't so scary when I learn one or two things about them. I don't have to learn everything about them, but but when I was in Korean martial arts, there was a big push. You do Korean and only Korean.
Yes.
When I was in Japanese martial arts, there was a big push. You do Japanese and only Japanese, right?
Yes.
But which is they're segregating. And then when I see this Dan Inosanto guy, who I mean, how good could he be? He wasn't even wearing a gi. I was at a seminar wearing gi pants, thinking to myself, this guy's wearing sweats. Heck, and they're blue. They're not even black like they should be. And like that mindset.
Right.
And just recognizing at the time, like, man, I want to learn more about this Indonesian stuff, and I want to learn more about this Filipino stuff, and I want to learn more. And by just knowing little things about their culture, not everything. And it made me realize, like, wow, that's all you really need is just to be able to see through a person's lens a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
That's all you need. If you can bring yourself to look at somebody's lens just a little bit, then they're not so scary. And when they're not so scary, you can communicate. When you can communicate, you can grow positive relationships. That's all there is to it.
So in another 20, 25 years, you'll put this on the back burner and you'll run for office somewhere in Michigan.
Oh, I hope not. If I'm running for office, something went horribly wrong. I have no desire for that.
Yeah.
No.
Go back to, because sometimes I ask people if when they were younger, if they saw themselves doing what they're doing now. I'm not going to ask you that, but you did say that you went back to the Taekwondo place to help them out by teaching, right?
Correct.
What did you know about teaching back then?
I don't know that I did.
I
mean, I was, like when I went, so I started assistant teaching. I started martial arts when I was 7. I started assistant teaching when I was 14. And then at the karate school I went to, they would have me like help with the kids class, and then sometimes maybe an assistant in the adult class, because even though I was only 14, I still had pretty decent technique.
Yeah.
And I don't know how awesome the teaching was, to be honest with you. I started teaching fully on my own when I was 19, and I can tell you right now. And by the way, I'm still friends with like my very first 3 students, like
Wow.
from back when I was 19 years old, and we still interact. One of them still trains with me.
Wow.
And his name is Josh Swain. He's an amazing person. I'm so grateful to have him in my life. Shoot, you made me lose my train of thought. Dang it. Oh, so the benefits of that where that I started so early, I had a lot of years to get all the big mistakes out of the way. So that by the time I got into my 30s, even though I looked like I was too young to be taken credibly,
Hmm.
I at least for those that took a chance on me, I had at least 10 years of teaching experience on my own by then.
Right.
And then I started to really, I started to really become like obsessed with teaching itself, the transmission of knowledge. And I found that I loved it. I loved it more than sparring. I loved it more than just getting a hard workout in. I love the challenge of being able to communicate something from me and get into another person's mind and get another person's body and I got to figure out their lens because they don't have
Yeah.
my 20, 30-year lens of martial arts to look through.
Right.
They got a fresh lens,
Yeah.
and their French lens has got all different experiences than mine. So I've really enjoyed, learning because then I take, it's almost like another martial art to me because then I take what I learned from this person and then I try to apply it with this guy and see if it works, and then I adjust my teaching style from there. And
Hmm.
I love that. I do. I dork out on teaching methods.
Out in the civilian world, the question is, how do you achieve a work-life balance?
Mhm.
But in the based on what you just said, how do you achieve the instructor, but personal, let's call it personal workout or as an instructor, how do you achieve the balance between being an instructor and still continuing to train, AKA learn and grow?
So I will tell you my balance, but I'm going to say balance is your word because I wouldn't say it's balanced. I spend, one thing I've loved about this Corona thing is that I've gotten to do more like Carenza movement and thinking about my curriculum and solo movements and training than I have in a
Yes.
long time. Because typically I teach 6 to 7 days a week.
Yeah.
So there's not a balance, but I do get my own training in. So what I would do is at our old schedule, we'll have a new one now, but like Wednesday nights were reserved for what I wanted to work on. So like Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, that's all for the students. I had a small group of invitation students I would let join me. But ultimately, like myself and my senior student, I would, say, okay, we're working on this kickboxing material from Lanero, or we're going to work on this heel hook material from Ryan Hall, or we're going to work on this back take material from Chet Skemmelhorn, or whatever it might be that I want to do. And we're just going to keep working it because it's my workout. So I do that on Wednesdays.
Hmm.
And then Sunday mornings, myself and one student, right now his name is Sam DeFries, he's the one that we're working with. I take him out to work on Balintawak stuff for a couple hours every Sunday morning, just him and I. And then Fridays, my student Larry and I get together and typically train for about an hour to an hour and a half on Fridays, where it's just him and I. And then once a month, I try to go down to Chet's to train down there in jiu-jitsu. That's a full day. That's like from 1 p.m. till 9 p.m. Takes up that whole chunk of time. So,
Right.
and then I travel to California at least once a year to either do an instructor camp or a CLAC camp. I see Guru at different seminars. Go to Indiana, Michigan. I used to do the one in at Jeff Brown's place in Ohio, Dayton, Ohio.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, I mean, I get it in when I can. I don't get to train nearly as much as I teach.
Right. Well, yeah, no, nobody does anymore.
But the thing is scheduling it though. That's
Yeah.
it. Scheduling and saying this is going to happen. Nothing's
Yeah.
going to get in the way.
So that obsession with teaching methods and curriculum and what have you, that's what led to the recent late night ramblings
Oh,
on,
definitely.
all right, on JKD and misconceptions of a complete system.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
I have a friend named Mike Thu, and he's out of Grand Rapids, Michigan. We trained under Yamashita together,
Mhm.
and we will very often get on the phone at night around 11 o'clock, and we'll talk for 4 to 5 hours about martial arts. Like, oh yeah,
How do you get permission to do that?
I call her, or I call them after she's already gone to bed.
Ah, I'll,
She
I'll,
knows.
I'll edit. Oh, okay. So
She
I was going to
she
edit that out.
she fully knows if she hears me on the phone in the middle of the night that Mike and I are talking martial arts. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
I had read something or was watching something, I forget what it was, and somebody was talking about that they had created their own martial art and they called it a complete martial art.
Right.
And but they didn't specify what complete was. And I've heard that term a lot of places or a lot of curriculums or groups say, oh, it's a complete martial art.
Mhm.
And so I started thinking about just about the term complete and like how that could be taken several ways. And I think initially, whether it's meant this way or not, I think initially when people hear the term complete martial art, they think of a martial art that has it all, has everything you'll need. It's complete. You won't need to study anything else. And we both know that that's about as untrue when it comes to martial arts as it could possibly get. So I started thinking, what other components of complete could he mean? Could it mean like he has, maybe it means that he has certain benchmarks he wants to hit, and once the curriculum hits the benchmarks, it's complete. But I just got thinking about it in terms of if it's your own personal style, if it's your invention, it's never complete until you die. Because
Yeah.
at that point you can't add anything more to it. Other people can, but those are addendums in my mind, in my opinion.
Right.
Those are addendums. That isn't your style. It's not your
Yeah.
style with this other guy's stuff attached to it. Right?
I found it interesting that you're like, I'm not even sure if I know what I'm thinking.
Well, yeah, because if JKD has taught me anything, it's that as soon as you know something, you're wrong.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I mean,
I
as
know what you
soon
mean.
as yeah, I so one of my favorite like learning moments, right? I used to watch Guru Dan do the open and close gunting, like the defend and return double stick. And I'd watch him, and sometimes he would hold his hand and hold the stick in kind of a weird posture. I thought this was quite a few years ago, and it was almost like a little bit more magic wandy than kind of sword like, And I was like, what is that's well maybe I mean I guess he can do it any way he wants, and I thought maybe he's just being a little bit more relaxed today or whatever. And then I saw Sifu Rick Fay doing the same thing, and I kind of mentioned something about it, and he didn't really know what I was talking about, answer my question. But then when he was demonstrating, and I don't know if he accidentally answered this or if it popped in his head the answer to the question, but he had mentioned about how one of the ways that they'll train it is to always try to like barely get a cut in and get a thrust, and all of a sudden that made sense as to why the stick is held a little bit more magic wand like than sword in that moment.
Right.
And I was like, oh, and it just added another layer of complexity.
Yeah.
But it made me think like, wow, I was so ready to just dismiss that hand posture as just whatever, when there was really something behind it. And I've had so many of those moments in my life, just in martial arts, but also just in life, where you realize that, oh man, I just scratched the surface. I had no idea the depth that's here.
Mhm.
And that's kind of where I started thinking about the terms of like, again, lenses that we see the world through,
Yeah.
Jiu-jitsu taught me it's way deeper than I thought. Carenza opened up my Kali more than anything else, because you're left with you and your imagination. And then what can you do if you're imagining something, you're picturing in your head? So what's the only thing you can do after that? You got to get a partner and experiment. You got to train it. You got to see if it works. And through experimenting, you're literally self-teaching. There's JKD, the philosophies of JKD, the principles of JKD
Right.
are all over Kali.
Yeah.
They're all over Kali.
Well, yeah, that is still to this day, it's one of the hardest things to try to impress upon people, because like you said earlier, some people they're really fixed in what is and what the approach should be and what have you. Do you remember my comment on the misconceptions of a complete system thing? Do you remember?
Jog my memory.
It was in reply to I forget, Sean somebody. Anyhow, what I said was whatever the guy's name is, and I apologize for not remembering his name. I said he's onto something when it comes to JKD terminology.
Oh yeah, because I went back and I actually read but unfortunately, I'm on the spot right now. I don't remember it.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
pretty.
Well, we both apologize for not remembering his name,
Well,
but
I think part of terminology though is like I think so many people add their own meaning to a term, and once you put your own meaning to it, you'll never agree if
well,
two
that
people are
yeah,
arguing about the same
which
term.
see which can be a source of frustration for us in the JKD world, right? But you so I have your quote here. It's a style or system is in actuality a reflection or a picture of the sum total experiences in one person's life. In
Yeah,
other
that
words,
that
the
that that, that was late night. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, right. Therefore, the person's style reflects their age, which is always changing, and therefore, so should their curriculum. Um, what I found interesting about what that guy said
Hmm.
is that he made reference to the fact that the word style is your individual way of doing things.
Versus system. That's right.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Style is your individual. So Mike Tyson's style is not the same as Roy Jones Jr. Same art of boxing,
Hmm.
but two different styles of
Yeah.
boxing, right? Because style is individualized. Now, if we talk to their trainers, we might discover that their trainers have organized their training programs in very similar ways. That organization of training is the system, is your system. You see? So
Hmm.
style is separate from system, although in the old days, because of kung fu films, right? You say to someone, "What's your style?" Right? And it meant,
Right.
"What's your art?" You know,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
But
Yes. Very much so. Yeah. What's your art? Yeah.
yeah,
What's your style? What's your
yeah,
art?
but you use it, so you had eagle claw style versus praying mantis style, right? You see?
Yeah. Art, style, and system. Yeah, I can see
Yeah,
that. Art being the umbrella of the family, the concepts behind it, and the lineage, and style being your personal movement, and system being how
yeah,
you transmit that style to another, and
yeah.
it becomes their style. Yeah,
You
I
see?
agree with that. I think that's great.
And so in your system, you have a certain collection of methods of training methods.
Hmm.
You see, because it's probably not everything that you have been exposed to is what you're using. You see, so you might like this. I mean, if you look at Inasano, Inasano does not use everything that he's ever been taught. As a matter of fact, all right, since we've been talking Inasano a little
A little bit.
bit, probably I'll throw out a number, but
Okay.
probably about 90% of what Dan Inasano teaches is his own creation. He can get it from anybody.
Hmm.
What he did was he got stuff, and then it's his genius that turns it into teaching method, training method, or whatever. But
Hmm.
so much of what we get from him is not the way it was given to him.
I believe that. I went to a seminar once for a guy that did Illustrissimo, and the stuff that I knew to be Illustrissimo based from like a lot of the Inasano Kali, I thought like, oh, there's gonna be a lot here that I'll be familiar with, and there'll be a lot here that there'll be. I didn't know any of it. I was like totally different to me. And I had asked the instructor about it. I forget his name. He was a younger guy. He was probably only about 5 years older than me. He had come down from Canada, and he said, and I showed him like I thought this was more Illustrissimo. He says, oh yeah, so you do a lot of La Costa and Asano. I was like, yeah, I do. And he says, yeah, a lot of people think that. And I was like, oh, and I wasn't too sure what he meant by that.
Right.
And then, but when you do the research, like, well, there were four Illustrissimo brothers, and
Exactly.
Guru Dan studied from two of them, I believe,
Yeah.
that I'm aware of. And so, maybe this was part of, maybe this come from one of the other two brothers.
Yeah.
I'm not too sure, but I know what you mean, because just about all the stuff we did, like I could tell, like, okay, now that started to look familiar, and that started to look familiar as we trained more. And I go, boy, I kind of feel like the way I learned from Guru makes a whole lot more sense than this. Like, I mean, you could see
Well,
that there was good stuff here,
right.
but you could see that Guru had refined it over
Yes.
the years.
You know why?
Why?
JKD.
Well, yeah.
You see, that's
Yeah.
why. And again, that's something that is tremendously difficult to explain to people, that even Inasano's Kali is very JKD tinged.
Yes.
You see, and that's why that's why well, no, I won't say it, because that would be too sacrilegious. But
Whoa, now I want to.
yeah, okay, I'll say it, right. I understand why it's thusly named, but Inasano Lacoste, or Lacoste Inasano, or whatever it is that they call it, it should just be Inasano.
I tell my students this. In our Armas Kali curriculum, we identify three branches inside of that we look at. We look at mixed Inosanto concepts, mixed Daga concepts, and mixed Balintawak concepts, and they all have their own like part that they play in the curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
Their own like essential cog in the wheel, if you will. But when people ask about Inasano Kali, I try to tell them, well, yes, there's Inasano Kali, and no, there's no Inasano Kali.
Right.
Says, what do you mean? And I says, well, if you look at my certificate, it says Filipino martial arts.
Right.
It doesn't say Inasanto Kali anywhere on it. However, number one, all his students refer to it as Inasanto Kali out of respect, because that is the lineage we got it from. But at the same time, if you go on YouTube right now and you start trying to find people that came before Guru that move like Guru moves, it's not there. All the people that move like Guru Dan, or all the people that do that material, those are all people that were his students.
Yeah.
It's tough to find footage of people prior to Guru. I mean, but in all fairness, though, that is also not the era of everybody having cell phones. So we got a little bit of video of Angel Caballos. We got a little bit of video of Johnny LaCosta. So I mean, it's entirely possible that there are people out there that were very similar to him in their movement. But ultimately, I've never seen. I mean, you can trace it back. When you see somebody do Kali, when it's got that Inasano flavor on it, you can tell right away. And so it's definitely his brand. I still call it Inasano Kali.
Yeah,
because it's his.
Well, yeah, no, I just, the thing that distresses me sometimes is the fact that people are not aware of just how much is his stuff, right? I mean, from stuff as simple as terminology or what have you. I mean, when we talk, so you could have in your curriculum, you could have categories of disarms. We got strips, right? And what have you. And one day it hit me. I go, nobody taught him strip disarms.
Right.
That's his creation.
Right.
That's him using football terminology. When he does the cambiada to the saplit, right? The quick release. Nobody taught him this is called a quick release. That's another football term. That's what he's doing. But he won't take credit for it.
No, he won't. I asked him one time about one of the, for lack of a better term, I'm going to call it Sombrata patterns. It didn't quite have a name, but I was at a camp and we were doing a particular pattern with a single stick. And I had asked him, I says, what is this? What is this from? And he's like, oh, it's a combination of about 3 different people.
Yes.
And I says, well, what arts, you know? And he's like, well, there's a little Balintawak in there. There's a little, maybe a little Lacosta, maybe a little something else. And I was like, well, what's that third one? And he was like, you're doing good. You're doing good, Kent. Watch this.
Yeah.
And so I have a feeling I know who that third person might have been,
Yeah. Yeah.
He doesn't like to take credit.
Yeah. I mean, Cass told me once that it takes sombrata, for example, that 5-count sombrata, right? The reason why 3-count sombrata exists is because nobody could get 5-count.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. We refer to the 3-count sombrata. We call it the seminar sombrata. because when I learned sombrata, the 5-count that you're referring to, it was that 5-count version.
Yeah.
And I worked that, and I learned that, and I put time in on that, and figured out how to work on the thrust, and put the level redondo and the abanico and moving it, and then all of a sudden it just kind of went away, and everybody's like, open, close, center, open, close, center, open, close, center. And I think that's a great training method because it covers your 3 main ranges. But I was so used to doing the longer version.
Right.
And it's almost difficult for me sometimes to do the simpler version without accidentally putting a thrust in there on my partner.
Yeah.
So we call it short sombrata or seminar sombrata just so that we know which one we're talking about, and also so that it has a little bit more of a history attached to it,
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So you talked about, you mentioned simple and what have you. So I'm going to give you unsolicited my final take on the whole misconceptions of a complete system.
I'm excited.
Okay. Here's what's missing. The letter D.
Okay.
Yeah. That settles it. The letter D is what, yes. All of the confusion that people are going through is because they're reading complete and they're understanding, in some instances, completed.
I see what you're saying.
You see?
Past tense.
Yes, right? Completed as in finished. That's where, for a lot of people, that's what they're thinking. So when you hear people talking about how since you're still growing, your system can't be complete, they mean it can't be completed. It can't be finished. You can't be done with it because you're still alive and you're still growing. But you can't, right? So it's not completed. But you can have a complete system. I'll give you the beginnings of it.
Okay.
Okay. In martial art, if I say to you in martial art, there are only two types of training or 2 types of arts. What are the 2 to which I'm referring? There's only 2 types of training in martial art.
Soft and hard. Weapons and empty hands.
Exactly. Exactly. That's all there is. That's all there is.
I agree.
Right? Okay. So, knowing that, if you make sure that in your art, you train weapons and empty hands, you now have the beginnings of a complete structure. You see?
Well, in that case, I'm getting more and more complete every day.
Okay. Right? So then you take that and and now you apply it again to your weaponry. How many types of weapons are there? And you just make sure that in your weapon system, right, you're covering all of that. In your empty hands, what is there that you can do in empty hands? And you make sure that your system, your approach or whatever, covers that. That's how you have the structure of a complete system. But it's not completed because you're still alive.
You got the structure for it, though.
Yes, you do.
I like that. Well, it's funny because when you say that, that's what I did with my curriculums. I identified what I consider to be the 5 areas of empty-handed self-defense, and I identified the primary 5 weapon types to study in college.
Yeah.
You know, and then from there,
Yeah.
you know, we use that as a platform to build off of.
That's what you do, right? Okay. All right. I have 2 more questions for you because I just actually I have 4 more questions for you. I just realized what time it is, right?
Fire away.
And I don't want to get you in any trouble.
No, she knows if I'm talking martial arts, I'm gonna be a minute.
All right. So listen to this, right? I haven't asked anybody this in a while. You get to come back and do it all again. You get to come back with the benefit of what you've learned this time around. Okay?
Okay.
So you get to come back, right? Usually people don't set the question up this way, right? Okay? You get to come back. You get to come back with the benefit of what you've learned this time around. But you have to pick. You get to pick 1 skill and 1 attribute or quality. What do you choose?
So you mean like physical skill?
Could be, right?
Like when you say skill and you say like attribute,
Yeah.
you know, those could be kind of, you know,
Yeah.
so like,
yeah. But let's say that a highly developed sense of self is a quality.
Okay.
Right? That's what I mean. Let's say that being good at building out a martial arts school with your own hands, let's call that a skill, right? So you have 1 skill and you have 1 attribute.
Oh boy, the skill. Jeez, wow, this is so tough because I can think of so many good ones that would help you in life if you came back if you knew.
Yep.
And then each one of those has like a total opposite side to it that can also be a drawback as well. Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'll let you off the hook. You don't have to come up with anything now, but tell me later.
No, I think number 1, I think for the skill, I think a general ability for physical coordination, because that would allow me to, because like you need that in order to play guitar or do martial arts or do any sport or, you know, lift weights, keep your body healthy. You have to have, you know, that some form of coordination. You have to be able to tell your body, you know, pick it up and put it over there. And so I think that would be my first one, because that would open up the door for me to be able to try anything I want. As far as the quality, you know, I think probably the ability to communicate. I think that's our biggest one, to understand.
Hey, but that might be a skill.
It might be, but I think understanding how to communicate with people could be a quality as well.
Yeah.
That's a tough one.
Well, yeah. Please, I can't give you. It's not like every question I ask you, you go, oh, but it's just this and this. I got to give you something to think about.
Oh, I'm grateful for it.
Here's an easy one. You ready? Here's an easy one. All right. It's a cliche. Who's the most important person in your world right now?
Are you trying to get me in trouble? Right now in this moment, it's you, Dwight.
Nah. Are you trying to get me in trouble right now? I forget who it was. Oh gosh, but it was an earlier, and it was probably a while ago. But I asked him what it was like to have the total support of the most important person in your life.
Lori was the first person I ever dated that um, didn't feel like martial arts took time, like took me away from her. Like she was the first person that didn't say you need to train less. I had a girlfriend once when I was a teenager say to me like, you spend so much time at the dojo, you need to spend more time with me. And I broke up with her right there on the spot because I recognize like, no, that's my identity. You know, like that's like I wouldn't ask you, you need to like pick one parent or the other. You know what
Right.
I'm saying? Like that's
Yeah.
her identity. You don't ask me to, take away the thing I love most. And I'm just gonna resent her for it anyways. And when Lori said to me, because we were only dating like for 4 months, and when she and I just gotten let go as a paramedic, and I was on my way home, and I drove by her house, and I thought to myself, if I don't, because I had to drive by, and she was on the way, and I thought, if I don't stop right now and tell her, I'm afraid that I'm just going to start looking for a new job and not mention it until because I don't want to lose this awesome person I just started dating, but I don't want to be that guy without a job. I mean, she was, she had a career and she, was making really good money at the time. And I didn't want to be that like no job having
Yeah.
loser boyfriend. Oh my God. But I bit the bullet and I was like, you know what? No, I'm going to go tell her right now
Yeah.
to keep myself honest to make sure I do. And I told her and, she was just straight up. Now it's time to follow your heart and do what you love. And I knew I was like, this person is the person for me. And there was that moment. There was another moment that I had in Kauai that let me know that this is the person I'm going to marry. And, my whole life, or it's not my whole life, excuse me, our whole relationship, we've been together about 12 years. Um, she's just always been here to support me. Even it doesn't matter if we're getting along or not getting along, if we're seeing each other a lot or not having the opportunity to see each other a lot, if there's a holiday or a special event or an anniversary, for the most part, um, she's never batted an eye about me going to the school. She's never said you stay there too late. She's never said, and I know she feels it. I know that there's been time like I go home and I've got a cold plate of food waiting for me in the microwave because she knew I wasn't going to make it home in time.
Mhm.
And that's not easy for her. I know that. That's
Yeah.
not easy for her. And it's one of the things that makes me love her even more because she's never made me ever feel guilty about pursuing my passion.
Right.
She has her passion. Her passion is physical fitness now and getting and being healthy. And she's a personal trainer at a gym. And she was a hairstylist for 20 years before that. And when she wanted to completely switch roles and change careers after 20 years, she had my full support because she has fully supported me the entire time. So how does it feel? Feels amazing.
Yeah.
Feels amazing to have somebody in your corner like that. Yes,
Nice. Nice.
I'm
All right.
grateful.
Okay. Let's finish up. Who should I have on the program?
Do they have to be JKD people?
I can do anything that I want.
Okay, here's what I'm gonna say. I mentioned Nick Swano before. If you want to, I mean, obviously, like some of my personal favorites out there, like there are amazing people you could talk to, like Guru Daniel Lanero. I think we'd all like to see Joel Clark.
Fat chance.
Exactly,
Yeah.
correct. I always love talking with Guru Conrad Kamen when I'm out at the academy, but I would actually encourage you to reach out to Professor Chet Skemahorn at Fort Wayne Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. He's my jiu-jitsu teacher. And the reason I say that is because I am a firm believer that jiu-jitsu is 100% in line with JKD philosophy.
Mhm.
And jiu-jitsu, although it doesn't do the blending of other arts per se, what jiu-jitsu does really well, it just openly admits like, oh yeah, no, we're in here experimenting. I saw this on TV and I'm trying it in here.
Mhm.
You couldn't do that in a karate school, you'd be shamed. But in a jiu-jitsu school, you can go in and say, oh, let's work on this. I saw this, John Donner put this out, and everybody knows the name and they trust the name, so they're going to try it.
Right.
And there's room for experimentation and there's room for growth. And and I think getting the perspective of somebody who just specializes in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
And he's been with the Gracies for more than 20 years. He's a 3-stripe black belt with them. He's been through all 4 versions of their instructor programs. He was the first affiliate student ever to get a black belt from the Gracies. And he's also been the first guy that was outside of the JKD teachers and Kali teachers that was really like, yeah, I think you should blend it. I think it's a good idea, and I've always appreciated that. And I think you can learn a lot about JKD, about the mindset of JKD by studying Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I truly do.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you should have Chet on. I think he might have perspectives that would be different than some of your other guests.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've stepped out of pure JKD, such with Dave Kovar. You know who he is?
Oh yeah.
Right. And also with Tom Callis, right? Because I know that they have valuable insights for martial artists on the whole, right? And
Mm-hmm.
and definitely for some aspects of JKD. So yeah, if you think he would do it,
I have no idea. You have to ask. I wouldn't ever presume to speak for Chet.
Right.
I don't know if he'd do it or not, but I think he'd be an interesting conversation nonetheless. You know who else? I mentioned before, but I've really been enjoying studying with Guru Daniel Lanero.
Yeah.
And a big part of studying with him is, we talk a lot about like the philosophies of things too,
Right.
not just the physical components. And I think he's going to be a leader in the next generation. I really do. He's 3 years older than me, I think. And I think in 40 years, he'll be the one out there teaching in his 80s. I truly do.
Yeah.
So if you get an opportunity to get him on too, I really would.
All right.
And who's been closer to Guru Dan in the last 20 years,
Oh, okay. In the last 20 years, right?
Yeah. That's what I mean. Like in the last 20 years, I mean, you can talk to guys that have been around like the previous generations.
Yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But those are guys that saw Guru in his, 30s, 40s, 50s, but I mean, really, Daniel Lanero's seen him every day almost for the last 20 years, from like in his 60s until now. So he's gotten to see more of the teacher side of Dan Inosanto.
Yeah.
And I bet you he would have some pretty, I don't bet, I know he would have some really, really interesting opinions and thoughts to contribute to your show.
Yeah. That's what I love about doing this. I mean, there's so many directions in which I can go. There's so many people, that I can reach out to. So I say it all the time. I'll never run out of dialogue partners. Never.
Yeah.
It's not gonna
happen.
I
like what you do, man. I like what you do. I've discovered people's stories and things that through your podcast that I had no idea about.
Yeah.
And so and it's cool because with your podcast, you've really had people from like all the way up to like Eric Paulson up at the top, to people that are just regular students that you just trained with back in the day,
Mm-hmm.
and so you get that full spectrum of people.
Yeah. I mean, because, look, I learned a long time ago from Inosanto. Did you ever hear him tell the story of him and Bruce Lee watching like somebody's demonstration or something, and he's like, I don't know if there was much. And Bruce Lee says to him, did you see that one thing that he did, whatever? And so I think that there's something that we can gain from everybody, even if it's just one little thing. And as a student of Dan Inosanto's, if I closed my mind to anything, I don't think I'd be honoring him. You know what I mean?
Agree with that.
Right?
I would agree with that.
Yeah. So it's like, if I think there's something that will benefit everyone in the JKD world from my talking to somebody, I'm going to talk to them for sure.
That's awesome.
Without a doubt. All right, man.
Well, you do a service here to people. You really do. I mean, these are historical documentations at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah. You are doing a service to the JKD community, and I appreciate it.
This is my contribution. This is my use of the technology.
There you go.
All right, brother. Have a great evening.
Hey, such an honor, man. I appreciate you so much. Have a good one. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Okay, that's it for today. Feel free, share, like, and comment. Ask questions. I'll have TK go through and answer anything if necessary. I'll do the same after posting. Follow me on Twitter at Dwight Woods and on Instagram at Dwight D. Woods. I love JeetKuneDo.com. The Quick Skill Series Volume 1 still available. Volume 2 will be produced by the end of 2020. Next time on the Jeet Kune Do Dialogues, next Friday, August 7th, episode 138 with Sean, and John of JKD Unlimited in Cincinnati. So that is next Friday, August 7th at 6 p.m. So I'll see some of you then. Hopefully I'll see some of you next week, Wednesday, for the I Love Jeet Kune Do broadcast. But until I see you again, this is Dwight Woods, the Jeet Kune Do Rebel, signing off. You guys enjoy your weekend. Hope everything's working out in your part of the world. Take care now.
So, 1, 2. That's all we're looking for. Okay? So, 1. This way here. Here. Okay, so we're just going to split. Okay, here. So the difference is we're not starting here now. Okay, now we're trying to look at it as like, well, when somebody throws that punch, right? What's that? That's a pop. You got it, right? So now he throws a punch, we pop, we check this hand at the same time. Now we enter. Okay? So I'm going to do my pocket, my hit. And I'm going to go ear slap, cross, kick. Okay? Again, parry, split, pop, ear slap, cross, and kick. Okay? If you're close enough, you go hooked across. Okay? Feels 1, 2. Okay? Here. Hammer fist goes to the mitt. Ear slap goes to the same mitt. See the weight shift back? So my weight can shift again for the cross.
You don't really lose, on your first parry, you don't really, and before you go to your split, you don't really lose contact.
You can or you can't. It's up to you. I might choose to parry and then split it, or I might choose to parry and ride it in. Okay,
My face fell off.
okay, so now I'm going to cross the center line. So we're going to go for our lock. Okay? 1, 2, 3. And go there. Okay? One more time. So, we fake it. He crosses. We lock. 1, 2. Boom. Okay? Fake it. Connect the barrier. One more time. Does everybody understand? Okay.